What's up? How y'all doing? It's Jared. It's a Benchmade 556-1 Mini Griptilian. I've had the experience of playing with this thing a few times, probably 4 or 5 times over the last year. I've carried it a little bit. It's not actually my knife. It is a guest blade. It's a buddy of mine's, but I did buy this knife. I'll explain how that came about in a minute. But I've got an interesting impression of this knife, right? The Dash 1 series in the Mini Griptilian. Because the original Mini Griptilian really is just that. It is a shrunk down, this is a 556, this is a 551, right? Full-size Griptilian. And it's just a shrunk down model. They made some changes. It's flatter than the original. There's actually more taper on the full size than the smaller one here. But it's still just a shrunk down model, right? It really is. It's got all the same jimping in all the same areas. It's got all the same texturing. It's a little bit changed in profile. There's a little bit of change in profile of the actual shape of the handle just to match the smaller, make it a little bit nicer in the smaller platform. And this one here is the same thing with this Dash 1, right? Because this is a full-size Dash 1 Griptilian. And it's the same thing. But they've achieved different aspects, I think, because this knife, opposed to the original Dash 1, is just a little bit higher end model. It's got nicer materials, it's more rigid, it's built a little bit better. It's in that class of higher end carry, when the original Griptilian is more of a bread and butter baseline of knife, right? And this knife, I think, goes a step beyond that. This actually takes it a step beyond just that nicer materials, just that upgrade in class of knife, right? This actually changes it from not just upgrade, right? Because this is just a serious upgrade. But it does change the knife, but it doesn't change the way I feel about the knife, right? It doesn't change my overall just feeling and enjoyment of how I carry and how I think about the actual knife. How I use it doesn't change at all. You know what I mean? It is the same cutting tool in general, but the way that I feel about this knife is better than I do about the original Mini Griptilian. They've done this excellently well. You can see these scales here are just, it's much more rounded. I don't know if I can get this to come across, but the original here is kind of flat, right? Let me close this thing down so I don't wind up cutting myself. But the full size here is flatter. You can see it doesn't have nearly as much taper because it comes down to the same angle change right at the actual edge, right? That flat section right here on the spine is the same, proportionally, obviously. But you can see just from how narrow it is in profile, and that fact that it comes to about the same thickness. They're almost the same thickness in width here. This has a whole lot more taper. It's more rounded and it's more milled out. There's more material removed here to create this more rounded shape all the way down this handle. You can see how narrow and how thin it actually comes behind the back of this actual handle here. And I really like that with this deep carry pocket clip, because if this deep carry pocket clip wasn't here, one of the things that I run into with the original Mini Griptilian is it's just not big enough. There's not enough grip. When I squeeze it like that, you can see my pinky wants to slide off the end. It's kind of just sitting on this little shelf. And this isn't the original clip. The original clip that came on this Mini Griptilian was this one here. It's on this 583 Barrage. It's the Benchmade clip. I put the split arrow clip on it. I think it just works a little bit better, but it still leads to that small little end. There's not a whole lot of material there for my pinky to grab onto. And that's not the case with this deep carry pocket clip, because you can see here it brings the profile of the knife out. It actually almost widens up in profile. There's not nearly as much material there, you can see there. So it feels in my hand, it feels like there's more there. My pinky's actually got more to grab onto, and it doesn't want to slip off that little shelf nearly as much. And so I've actually got more of a secure grip with this than I do the original Mini Griptilian. And it's the same thing with this rounded profile here, because it's much more rounded than the original Mini is in profile here. You can see that there. And what this leads to, this is a problem with my larger hands, right? Because I've got some decent sized hands. You can see just in comparison's sake there. And so, this isn't an ideal knife for me, first off. But what happens when I grip the original mini Griptilian, right? When I hold it like this, there's that gap there. I've got a lot of space on either side of this knife because it is so narrow in profile here and it's so thin in this direction. Here, it wants to shift. I don't have a very secure grip in my hand when I'm actually using this. There's nothing just to hold it steady. But this rounded profile of this one here actually leads to me being able to get a better grip. I can wrap my finger around it a little bit more. That's not to say that that problem isn't still there. It is. It's not fixed. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like this knife doesn't do that. It still does, but it's more controllable, and I feel it doesn't shift nearly as much in my hand when I hold it like this. And when I'm digging into harder material, I've really only carved a little bit of wood with this, and it was just right before the video to get a really good impression of that. But that's what I noticed. You know, it doesn't shift nearly as much, and I really like the way that this handle is done. So I think that this is actually more of an upgrade than this is in just how much better they've made the knife. Obviously, all of the materials are the same. It's the same CPM 20 CV upgrade opposed from the 154 CM on the original, but it's a better knife. They made this a better knife than they made these. You know what I mean? There's a bigger gap between these two knives than there is between these two knives, I think. That's just my opinion, obviously, but I really do think that they nailed it, knocked it out of the park with this knife. And I really like this G10 because you can see this pocket clip here. I bought this knife. I owed my buddy about $200 a little while ago. And, you know, he's really, you know, he's into quality stuff. He's got an appreciation for nice things. He's not necessarily the biggest knife guy. But so he wanted a knife. He's like, get me a pocket knife, get me something good, get me something that I can rely on. And I knew that he liked the original mini Griptilian. He'd seen my knife collection before. He'd played with this. This isn't, you know, it was something that he'd seen. And so, you know, I had the idea, maybe, you know, get this -1 mini Griptilian. This was about a year ago. And so this is actually the way that I paid him back for that $200 that I owed him, as I went out and bought this knife. And I've kept it up, kept it sharp, you know what I mean, put a new edge on it, you know, resharpened it every time that it's needed it, cleaned it out, you know, just kept it up and running. But you can see this G10 there, it's polished, right? It's smooth. You can see that light shimmering off of it, which doesn't happen with mine here. This full-size -1 I've carried less than 30 times. It's probably like 20 or 30 times that I've actually carried this knife. You can see there's the hardware is darker, there isn't nearly as much shimmer, there isn't that little ding on the actual pivot area section there, but that's the only actual deformation to this G10. So I mean, he hasn't dropped it, he hasn't dinged it, because there would be some marks like that, but just overall carry wear, you can see this knife has been carried and it's been used. It hasn't been abused per se, but it's been carried and it's been used a decent amount. So you can just evident by that pocket clip, you know what I mean? How much wear this knife has taken down, as well as the edge, how many times I've actually sharpened this 20 CV. So it's gone through you know, I don't know this knife's life, but I know that it's had a decent life. It's had a decent working life over the year that it's existed, and it doesn't have a mark on it. It looks excellent. So that's just kind of a testament to this G10 material. It's one of the reasons that it's so popular, you know. That's why they upgraded it over that Grivery. G10 is such a popular material in the knife industry now, and it's just all over the places because it is just excellent. It's good stuff. That CPM 20 CV sharpens up easy as shit. It holds an edge for a decent amount of time. It doesn't hold an edge for an extremely, you know, extreme period of time, but it takes an edge very, very well. For as much carbon and as much carbide is actually, and chromium is actually in that steel, it does take an edge really easy. It actually sharpens as quick, I would say, as something like S30V or S35VN. Just a few strops and it's done, or a few swipes over the stones and it's good to go. So that's a Benchmade. Can you still stick Mel Pardew's name on this? This thing has changed so much from the original design that he came up with. Obviously, he still deserves credit. But that's a Benchmade 556-1. Y'all have a good one.